Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global. I'm your host, Nick Toka. Today is June 1st, and happy month to everybody out there, 2025. We've got Bitcoin back in the green after a bit of downturn that it took, but we can't expect it to go up every day, can we? Generally, a big upswing in the price is always followed by a bit of a sideways or downward movement. And hopefully we move onward and upward from here. In our stories, the IMF, who we all say, fuck the IMF, asks for urgent clarification from Pakistan over 2,000 megawatt power allocation to Bitcoin mining. Why don't you stay out of your fucking in your own jurisdiction, man? This is pissing me off. All right, first they're after El Salvador. Now Pakistan announces they're going to do some Bitcoin mining, and they're going to have a Bitcoin strategic or treasury. And suddenly the news comes out. The IMF asks for urgent clarification. Why don't you go fuck yourselves? Bitcoin, on Better News, will explode to new all-time highs just as traders flip super bearish on BTC. Don't get caught off guard, folks. According to Analyst, this is exactly what's happening, and this is what the big boys like BlackRock want you to think. Once the price goes sideways like it has in the past week, this is just itching to pump to even greater all-time highs very soon, as we will see in the M2 money supply, and we can even see with the historical charts. All this and so much more on today's show. Welcome, folks, to Crypto News Global again. I am your host, Nick Toka, and we see that the Bitty is up about 1% right now, up to 105,500. Ethereum up 0.3%, 2530. Solana up 1.5%, 158 bucks. XRP even $2.17. Doge up 1 and almost 0.25%, 19 cents. Taking a look at our crypto bubbles for a better perspective on things, we've got white, whatever that is, White Rock. Of course, there had to be a White Rock. All right, Black Rock, White Rock. Interesting. Up 226% for the month, 10% for the day. Pengu, pudgy little penguins, which you see in my AI-generated image, are getting squashed by the bull. Kind of a cute little image I put together. XMR up 6.9%. For the week, man, for the day, we've got 90% in the green. For the week, we've got 90% in the red, except for White Rock. Holy fuck, I'm going to have to check this one out for one of those shitty meme coins that once in a blue moon we throw a few bucks at just to see what's actually happening. For the hour, down 5%. For the day, up 10%. Careful with the shit coinery, folks. I wouldn't recommend it. But it is up for the month, 225%. Hype up 64% for the month. Pepe up 38% for the month. SPX up 90% for the month. Taking a look at the market cap, we've got Bitcoin sitting at $2.1 trillion, Ethereum $305 billion, XRP $127 billion, Solana $82 billion, Doge $28 billion, Tron $25 billion, Cardano $24 billion, Hype, holy crap, it's jumped up there, $11 billion bucks above Sui, which is also 11 billion. Oh, it's only 25 million above SUI. Chainlink, number 13, sitting at 9 billion, and Avalanche, AVAX, 8.7 billion buck market cap. Looking at the total market cap, we've got the $3.25 trillion for the total crypto market cap, with Bitcoin holding 64.5% of that, Ethereum 9.4%, XRP just under 4% of the total supply. Looking at the very important M2 money supply, and still noting the very, very close correlation between the M2 in pink and the Biddy in white. Let's zoom in on this thing. And we'll see that, what we really want to look at is how things are backed up, right? They call for a 90-day, and that's pretty close to exactly how long it takes for the Bitcoin price to follow the M2 money supply. So, this is 3 months ago. This is current for Bitcoin. This is what's happening 3 months ago. This is what's happening current for Bitcoin. So again, it's a little harder to see in here, but if we refresh, we can see very, very, very strong correlation between the M2. Everybody talks about it. And why do they talk about it? Because it's legit. It is something to follow, and the chart I have up is the M2 money supply for 21 top central banks in the world. So we aren't seeing a decline in the M2 money supply. We are seeing a bit of a tail off right here. It's not going straight up the way it did, we'll call it about 3 weeks ago. It's kind of going a bit sideways, and we see the Biddy is also kind of going a bit sideways, but following extremely close patterns. Looking at the crypto fear and greed index, we've got a 57 currently in neutral. Yesterday was 56 in neutral. Last week was 69 in greed. There are 1,045 days left until the next Bitcoin halving 2028, with 150,000 blocks until the halving. Total market cap by assets globally, we've got gold at 22.3 trillion bucks, Microsoft 3.4 trillion, Nvidia 3.2 trillion, Apple 3 trillion, Amazon 2.1 trillion, Bitcoin 2.1 trillion, Google 2.1 trillion. These three are very, very close to each other. Amazon, Bitcoin, and Google within about 100 million. All three of them are very, very close, and they have been for a couple weeks now. Silver at number 8 under that at 1.8 billion. Meta has flipped Saudi Aramco. Meta at 1.6 trillion. Saudi Aramco at 1.6 trillion. Broadcom, Tesla, and Berkshire Hathaway. So Berkshire Hathaway's fallen a couple positions as Broadcom and Tesla have jumped up above them. Currently, you can get 948 Satoshis for one fiat US dollar. And speaking of the US dollar, we are on the threshold of getting to the sad number of $37 trillion in U.S. debt, currently sitting at 36 trillion and 925 billion and change. That equals to 107,809 per U.S. citizen, 323,051 per U.S. taxpayer. Doge has saved $500 billion, 499 billion. By the time this show ends, it will be at 500 billion bucks that they've saved, which equals 4,450 per U.S. taxpayer. So it's on pace to keep about 1,000 bucks per taxpayer. So good savings, and we see that Elon has now stepped down as the chairman or whatever his position was. So I guess, some other nerds are going to keep things going there on his behalf, number crunchers and investigators, quite honestly, and they're looking to find where they can get some savings from. Now, getting to Elon quickly, you got to hand it to him, despite what the Democrats and CNN and all this crap you hear in the news about him. He left his very profitable, very good companies to go and work for free to try and find fraud and abuse in the U.S. government. Now, I'm not quite sure why everybody's so mad at him, because when you think of the government around the world, you think of fraud and abuse, don't you? Right? Dictators, this kind of thing around the world, they totally take advantage of the people. A very, very small percentage of the population, and that is the bureaucrats, are the ultra rich, and in most situations the common folk are the ultra poor. Now, when you think about the U.S. and developed countries, not just the U.S., you don't necessarily think of corrupt governments, but the more we see stories that come out, the more we know that, in fact, they are just as corrupt, if not maybe to a lesser degree, and in some cases maybe to a bigger degree. It's not just one person in the West or in developed countries that are corrupt. It's the whole organization. So the fact that the number one employer in the United States is the U.S. government, there's got to be some bad apples in there, right? So they've gone through and they've found a bunch of these bad apples, things that slip through the system. There was always that student in school, right? They did fuck all. They didn't work hard at all. And they just kind of slipped through the system, right? These are the kind of people that you end up, having to work with, right? Let's face it. You do well, you know your job well, you study well, and then there's the guy next to you who slipped through the system, and they're at an equal pace as you, right? Equal pay, equal everything, and it's like, how does this even happen? So this happens through the entire school system, through grade school, through university. There's people that are slipping through the system, and then there's the hard workers. So in the government, surely there's also these slip through the system kind of folks, and this is what they rely on. So in terms of corruption, they're just taking advantage. They're finding the loopholes, and they are effectively stealing money from you and me and taxpayers. We're all taxpayers, right? So you should be pissed off when they're finding that, $500 million were given to blah, blah, blah for some DEI purpose, or it's halfway around the world. And we know that 500 million bucks probably isn't used for that purpose anyway. It's taken and stolen and siphoned through their own corrupt government. So let them fend for themselves, right? It's simple, right? Why does our country have to go downhill just to allow another country who can't do it on their own, go get better or surpass you? Or, it's difficult. I mean, nobody told that other country to be corrupt, right? Nobody told them to have a dictator. No one told them to stay backwards, not embrace technology. Don't go forward with anything. Let's just continue on here as we were. Maybe they're happy like that, right? Why would we? Why are we giving them money? Why are we throwing our tax money away? I like the prospects of zero tax. This I love. This is the way it should be, right? So you work hard and you're able to keep your tax money. The number one cost to citizens is tax. Look at your paycheck, right? It's not your mortgage, it's not your groceries, it's not your car, it's taxes. It's the number one thing that we pay for. So lower it, get rid of it. I like what he's doing with these tariffs. Okay, I don't like this whole, the way they went about it. I feel like that was a whole fear tactic, right? And quite honestly, it worked. If you start at 2%, then everybody's going to say, oh, they put 2% tariffs. Oh my goodness, right? But if you start at 100% and then a month later say, oh, you know what, we'll lower it to 2%, then everybody's yelling hooray, right? Oh, it's only 2% now. So don't put it past this Trump. Everybody, I don't know, you keep hearing he's a fool, he's this, he's not. He's a businessman. If he was a fool, then, he wouldn't be where he was today. Does he sometimes talk a little too much or too openly? Yes, but to me, that's a good thing. Shouldn't everything be transparent? Right? So getting back to Elon, good for him. Now he retired from his gig. Let his, nerdy disciples basically do policing and investigation and finding out where this corrupt money was going and save it. So they've saved, as we showed a minute ago, right on 500 billion bucks so far. By the end of the show, it's going to be 500 billion. And of course, on the other hand, the U.S. national debt will, by tomorrow, no, it goes up generally about 5 billion a day. So in 20 days or so, 15 days, half a month, that's going to be over 37 trillion bucks. This is a problem, folks. This U.S. national debt is a big fucking problem. This Doge is a blessing, right? We need more of this stuff. But, hey, go burn the guy's dealerships down because he's trying to help you. Just ridiculous. Let's get into our stories. We've got the IMF asking for urgent clarification from Pakistan over its 2,000 megawatt power allocation to Bitcoin mining. Mind your own frickin' business, right? This here, we're going to go through the article. The people who are asking for this, it's just ridiculous here, right? What's going on here now is the highlighted they right there, are finding that they might lose control of their precious dominance over humanity and the current financial system, right? International Monetary Fund, right? I learned about this in school, and back then I thought it was a great thing. They're helping out everybody. No, what they're doing is loaning money. You don't think that there's money expected to be paid back, right? And where did this money come from in the first place? The IMF's reserve, right? They're just in it to keep their control over society, and they want to use money as their controlling system because this is the best they had found. Now, they're seeing that a new currency, a new path for... Look, in Pakistan, I'm not sure what their per capita income is, but I know it's low, right? So if In Pakistan or that region, their per capita income is, like $300 a month, because I believe it is, if not less. And they can put their money into Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining and make, a lot more. Why wouldn't you let them? You should be happy for them. The IMF is concerned about the impact of Pakistan powering Bitcoin mines and AI data centers amid electricity shortages. Oh, now there's electricity shortages, right? This is the excuse. And at the same time, they're talking to El Salvador and they're telling them to stop. Meanwhile, they're using volcanic energy. So there's energy shortages in that too? They're taking volcano and something that would just spew out energy and would never be collected, but now they're collecting it. This is a problem over there as well, right? There's a crisis, it seems. The International Monetary Fund wants Pakistan to urgently clarify its plans for allocating power to Bitcoin mining amid the country's electricity shortages and fiscal problems, according to a local news report. Well, I think this would help fix their fiscal problem, IMF. The IMF delegation is expected to hold a separate virtual session with Pakistan's finance minister to specifically discuss the electricity allocation. Last week, Pakistan announced that it will allocate 2,000 megawatts of power toward the operation of Bitcoin mines and artificial intelligence data centers. The IMF, which has repeatedly warned countries against the risk of governments buying Bitcoin, oh my God, sanctioned a $2.4 billion loan for Pakistan earlier this month and is currently in talk with the country about its budgetary plans. According to the finance minister sources, Pakistan did not loop in the IMF in its plans for power allocation for Bitcoin mining, citing sources familiar with the matter. However, the local news report stated that the IMF has reiterated its demand that countries receiving aid from the organization under the External Fund Facility consult on all policy changes. You know what? I'd say raise some money in Bitcoin and then tell them to blow off. Give them their money back and tell them to shut up and stay out of your business. That's what I would suggest. An official involved in the budget negotiations with the IMF told local news outlets, Sama, there's a fear of further talks from the IMF on this initiative of allocating electricity to Bitcoin mining. The economic team is already facing stiff questions about this move and has only added the complexities of the ongoing talks. Pakistan plans to repurpose 3 underutilized coal plants to provide electricity to Bitcoin mines in AI data centers. However, the IMF is concerned about how the initiative will impact electricity tariffs and distribution. Right, so underutilized coal power plants. So they're going to ramp up the power. They're underutilized anyway. So it's not like they're taking power from citizens and reallocating it to Bitcoin mining. In April, Pakistan's Natural Electric Power Regulatory Authority announced cuts to electricity prices for a range of consumers. Amazing. The cuts, however, followed an increase in the base power tariffs announced last year. Oh, not so amazing. But it's still a cut. Pakistan is taking rapid strides to embrace crypto. Over the past few months, Pakistan has rapidly changed its stance on cryptocurrencies, announcing several plans and initiatives to adopt crypto assets and regulate them. In March, the country established the Pakistan Crypto Council to regulate crypto assets, boost their adoption, and integrate them into Pakistan's financial landscape. In early April, Pakistan appointed former Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao as strategic, which is known as CZ, right, from Binance, the richest man ever to go face jail time and go to jail, as strategic advisor to the council. Late last month, World Liberty Financial, a decentralized finance project with close ties to President Donald Trump, and his son signed a memorandum of understanding with PCC, which is the Pakistan Crypto Council. On May 21st, following the recommendation of the PPC, the government established the Pakistan Digital Assets Authority, PDAA, an event attended by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, as well as Trump's son, Eric, and Donald Trump Jr. The PDAA will serve as a regulatory watchdog responsible for overseeing the licensing and digital asset services providers, ensuring compliance with the Financial Action Task Force regulations, and promoting innovation. At the Bitcoin 2025 conference on Thursday, Bilal bin Saqib, crypto advisor to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, unveiled the country's first strategic Bitcoin reserve during the IMF's scrutiny. Shaqib, who also announced the launch of a national Bitcoin wallet, noted, "Our youth are online and on-chain." Pakistan, with over 40 million crypto wallets and an average age of 23, is now being recognized for its future rather than its past. So, good for them. Like, why not look after your citizens? I just don't understand. There's no other reason for this IMF to be all over these countries that say they're going to start adopting Bitcoin, other than them trying to just continue to control and oversee them financially. There's no... Look, you lend them $2.4 billion. I get it, right? But if you want them to be successful, you can then say, use this $2.4 billion for this and this and this and that, right? If you lend them $2.4 billion and tell them, here's your loan so you can be more successful, then you let them do whatever the fuck they want to be more successful. They'll probably do better things with it than you would, IMF. Where are you going to put your money? U.S. bonds, IMF? Like, come on. Bitcoin will explode to all new time highs, just as traders flip super bearish on Bitcoin, according to this analyst. Curious about this one here. A closely followed crypto strategist believes that the current Bitcoin pullback is setting up BTC for a move to new record highs. I couldn't agree more. Analyst Justin Bennett tells his 115,000 followers on the X platform that Bitcoin's retracement will likely drive traders to believe that the bull market is over. Folks, the bull market is not over. Like, come on. The bull market is either going to end the same time as it always ends, which is end of October, beginning of November, the year after the halving. So here we have it. Let's flip to our trading view chart here on my other screen. So here we have the halving, right? So this is our last halving. Let's get a good view here. And the bull ended right here. If you look at the bottom in the black down here, as I hover over the cycle peak from the last halving, right? So the halving was in April or March or April in 2020. And the cycle peak was November the following year, 2021. So here we have it. And then, of course, generally what has also traditionally happened, historically happened, is the cycle low is a year and 2 to 3 months after the cycle peak. So if you want to buy Bitcoin, this is where you want to buy it. A year and a couple months after the cycle peak, right? You want to sell Bitcoin? Well, you know, November, the year after the halving, historically has been the time. So, you know, for people to think, oh, the bull run's over, I kind of feel like we're right here in terms of this bull run. You can see the chart is very, very similar, right? We've got a bit of a whole run up Like, check it out. I'd like to overlay these one day. Maybe I'll do that in, one of these Photoshop programs, or GIMP or Paint.net, which are the free versions. We've got sideways action, right? Sideways action, sideways action. Then we've got a slow run up. So sideways action, comparing it to the current cycle peak. Then we've got a slow run up, right? Here we are, slow run up. Then we run into this kind of downturn, sideways action again. And here we are, sideways action again. Then big run up, bit of a 20-30% downturn, and then we get into the real cycle peaks. So if we're going to go by history, and let's take 41,000, this is in 2021, 41,000, and it made it all the way up to the cycle peak 70,000. So that is about 1.75x from this point right here, which is kind of where I'm saying we're at right now. So if we take 1.75, 110K, and we go 1 times 1.75, if I'm looking at the chart accurately, we're looking at about 193,000 cycle peak in October, early November. Then, of course, followed by, the sell-off, right? I don't know if that's going to happen this time around. We got BlackRock. We've got all these countries buying up Bitcoin. Every couple of days a new country says, oh, we're going to buy Bitcoin. We're going to do this with Bitcoin. We're going to do that. We're going to adopt it. But if history holds true, so we got 70 grand and it fell all the way to 16,000 bucks from 70. So let's do the percentage on that. So 70, 16K divided by 70K. So it went to 22% of the price. So then if we take that and multiply it by 193,000, we could see a cycle low a year and 2 or 3 months after the cycle peak. So we are talking then 2026, either the very December 2026 or January, February 2027, we could see the price then dip way back down to even 44, 45 grand. Again, if history holds true, this is what history shows us. So to me, when I try and, look at charts and think about what might happen, and again, this is not financial advice, guys. This is Bitcoin. The whole history could all of a sudden change, and suddenly this whole history that I think I'm looking at could be completely different this time around. But it's something to have in the back of your head, something to know, and something to think about, and something to chart out. And if you are invested in Bitcoin, it's also something that you should embrace and look forward to. If you're able to sell at the cycle peak, buy in again. So we saw 22%. So if you had 0.1 Bitcoin, for example, and you sold at the cycle peak, and then you bought in again at the cycle low, you technically could then have 0.4 Bitcoin, right? So it's a good approach. I think it's going to be the approach that I use personally. It's going to be a challenge. Because with BlackRock, with the ETFs, with the, all the state-owned Bitcoin reserves that are coming out, all the countries that are coming out with their own reserves. All it takes is for one country, namely the US, let's face it, right? All it takes is for them to say, oh yeah, we've quietly been buying Bitcoin and we now have 1 million Bitcoin. Excuse me. If that happens, the price is going to frickin' skyrocket. So it's hard to say that if this Bitcoin 4-year cycle is going to be the same as the historic 4-year cycles. So far in 2012, 2016, 2020, it has been almost to the number. The November, approximately October to December, the year after the halving, is the cycle peak. A year and 2 or 3 months after the cycle peak is the cycle low. This is going by history. So if you're going to play it like that, which I'm strongly, before this cycle even started, I already had my charts down, taking this, putting it on paper. It wasn't just this. It was this chart all the way from 2012, 2011, I think. Marking the actual halving date, then marking the cycle peak, then marking the cycle low, figuring out the percentages from the change from the halving date until the cycle peak, and then from the cycle peak to the cycle low. And it was very freaking consistent. So, it's one approach people can use in hopes to gain more Bitcoin. Do I think that going from point 1 to point 4 is a great idea? 100%. Do I think that selling your point 1 and taking the profits and then maybe buying another point 1 is a good idea? I don't think it's as good of an idea. I think a long-term approach is ideal. It's just like traditional investing. If you try and time things, a lot of times you get screwed. And if you think that you're going to make a whole bunch of money and then get out, you could see after that the price of Bitcoin and the whole crypto market continue to climb and then kick yourself forever. So it's a bit of a challenge. What I can suggest is one way to, for sure, get yourself in a good position to make money is to buy at the cycle low, right? If you had bought right here, we'll call it, again, a year and a couple months after the cycle peak, right? So 2022 December all the way until here January. So from 2022 November to 2023 January. If you had bought somewhere in here, who would frickin' care? You would just be sitting on the couch enjoying this run-up, right? All you'd have to do is wait. If you're currently buying here, you're asking for a lot, right? You're betting that this is going to go up, as we said, 1.75 per, 2x or 5x or 10x or whatever the prediction is from whichever analyst. And, all that analysis is just a guess, which is just as good as your guess or my guess. But if you had bought way down here, you wouldn't give a shit, right? You'd be in at $16,000. You'd be laughing right now. You wouldn't give a fuck if this went down 30%, 40%. You wouldn't have to sell, right? You wouldn't be buying at 110 grand, and then if it drops, you're already in the red, right? It's like, fuck, right? The idea is you buy it low. So always buy on a red day if you're going to buy in at this point. And I don't disagree. It's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin. I mean, look at Michael Saylor. The best way to do this is to dollar cost average over time. All right, put in the same amount of money over a long term. You know, $100 a month, let's say $200 a month, and even better, split that. So if you're going to put $200 a month, instead put $50 a week. Right? This even averages you in even more. So this approach, used in traditional financial markets as well, ensures that you get in at the lowest possible price over time. Right? If you've got a lump sum, go with a lump sum. Right? What if you're averaging in and the price skyrockets and you're like, fuck, now I'm buying it higher. However, again, I have to say over and over, you want to buy in here. If you were in here, nothing would faze you. This would all be profit. Even if you sold here, you'd be way up. Even if you sold here, you'd be way up. If you sold here, you'd be way up. And if you can afford to wait now, right? Even if the price dips, this is the real cycle peak. Right? Let's say the prices are tanking now and the price goes back to 50-something thousand and you missed it. You thought it was going to go up. You didn't sell. Oh man. Well, you'd still get out at 60 grand if you wanted to. And you bought at 16, right? So using that approach, buy on a red day, sell on a green day, always. I know there's the hype and people it's human nature. It's always the hype. People are buying the hype. You want to buy the shit. You want to buy when everybody says, oh, this is fucking tanking. Forget it. I don't want it anymore. That is when you want to be buying it. Right? If it is something that's long lasting, like a good stock, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Google, when things go to shit, Tesla, right? Tesla, they're burning down his cars. The freaking stock tumbled 40-50% in like a week. The smart people, what do? They bought, right? The dumb people, what do? They sold it, right? The smart people were buying the shares that the dumb people were selling, right? The dumb people were selling it when the price was down on the red day, and the smart people were buying it on the red day. So keep that in mind. Always buy on a red day, sell on a green day, hence the term buy the fucking dip, right? It's a Bitcoin term, and even government heads like Najib Bukele, he even said, we bought the dip. I don't know if he said we bought the fucking dip, but he's definitely said before, El Salvador bought the dip, right? So it's a known thing now, and everybody should be using this buy the dip approach when the prices go down, whenever, this is for something of value. If there's some little shitty meme coin or something, I don't know if you're going to buy the dip on that. It might never come back up. But if you're buying Bitcoin, or if you're buying a long-lasting commodity, silver, gold, or if you're buying a property, right? You want to buy it when the market is shit. When everybody's saying, oh, I'm not going to buy it, the interest rates are too high, or when no one wants to buy a house in December, for example. Well, that's when you want to buy it. Everybody wants to buy in April and May. Well, that's when you want to sell it, right? That's when you're going to get the most money. And then when you're buying it, when nobody else wants it, in December, that's when you're going to get the best price on it. You buy it in December, and then by May, you've already made freaking 50, 100,000 or more. So always look at it that way in terms of financial approaches, financial literacy. Let's continue on with the story. Enough of my rant here. According to the analyst, he expects Bitcoin to correct below 100,000 before it ignites to a fresh en route to 120 grand. This is the part where everyone gets super bearish, expecting a 2021 style macro top. It's also probably overly aggressive shorts get wrecked. Yep. The run-up isn't even close to the same. The backdrop couldn't be more difficult or different. I doubt they make it this easy. Right? So I think this guy's bang on with his charting. I would actually expect that red arrow to actually be even more vertical than it is here. You see the jumps that Bitcoin makes where I've got the mouse here. It doesn't, okay, fine, there's this little point over here. But for the most part, like, check it out. Jumps. Then it goes a little sideways. It jumps. Then it goes a little sideways. It jumps. Like, these aren't little jumps. These are, like, God candles. This is the shit that's going down. Like, look at this, right? 2021. Look at, this is not a small little, what this guy's got, this little 45-degree red. No, you're seeing jumps like this, straight up the cliff, the banana zone, they've dubbed it, right? In 2021, Bitcoin attempted but failed to take out the resistance at 69,000 twice, triggering a bear market that sent Bitcoin to bear market lows of 16,000. But this happened in November. As for Bennett's downside target for Bitcoin, he thinks Bitcoin may bounce to 100,000 or 97,000. BTC's next legs down is confirmed. 104.8 flips to key resistance. Support is 100,000. Same outlook as the last 9 days. At the time of writing, Bitcoin is trading for 104.4, and if we really look, it's trading at 105.5. Currently, looking at the broader crypto market, the analyst says he's keeping an eye on the total chart, which tracks the total market cap of all digital assets. Bennett believes that total will correct to find support at 3 trillion, which aligns with his expected BTC pullback. I could be wrong. I'm certainly not always right. However, I'm not sure how some are interpreting this as bullish. Things can change, but right now, sellers are in control. A bearish total chart indicates investors are unloading their crypto holdings. At the time of writing, total is trading at 3.225 trillion. Right, so that, a bearish total chart. He's talking about the total market cap, which is actually, it's down slightly, right? Down from 3.35 trillion to 3.25 trillion. And we can get the exact number right here, but it's not down that much. Right, 3.25 trillion. And it was 3.35 trillion about a week ago when Bitcoin was at the all-time high. Its current all-time high at 112 grand. So did it go down? Not much. I don't know. The sale is talking through his ass, in my estimation. Now, could it go down to 100,000? Sure. Right? Think about it. 100,000, now that it's broken the 100,000 point, okay? 1% gain or loss is over $1,000. 10% gain or loss is over $10,000. So we could have a God candle, a $10,000 climb. in a day very easily a 10% jump or a 10% decline, a pullback very easily, right? It's 10%. And just to put things in perspective, so, everybody's predicting Bitcoin will get to $1 million, all the big analysts, and I feel the same way. So when it gets to $1 million, let's say it's in 2029, right? Next 4-year cycle. A 1% gain at that time, or 1% loss, will be $10,000. A 10% will be $100,000. So it's all relative in how you look at it. But to get to 100 grand is just, a 5% drop. And we see historically many 5% drops before it hits its all-time high. In fact, we see a lot more than that. Forget freaking 5% drops. We see freaking huge fucking drops, right? Like, look at this, right? 30% drop here, then up, then probably 20, 30, 40% drop, then up again, then down, then up. People can't be afraid if Bitcoin price goes up or down by a couple $1,000 because inevitably it will go up and down by a couple $1,000 quite a bit. And that is, quite honestly, I think it might be built into its infrastructure to weed out the weak, right? The price goes down, people sell. They sell on the red day, right? This is what I was saying 5 minutes ago. Don't sell on the red day. Sell, if you're going to sell on a green day. They sell, that adds liquidity out, or it removes liquidity from Bitcoin, so it allows other people to buy into Bitcoin because there's actual more available for them to buy. The price is lower, they buy in, then the price goes up. It's just this constant game of up and down, and it's likely not going to end for probably a couple decades. The volatility is likely to get less and less, but I wouldn't be surprised if this eventual upswing continues for many years. I'm hoping on it, and all the Bitcoins are hoping on it. They probably started all small and maybe now or maybe get big. I see so many YouTube videos now talking about there's not many people, like less than 1% of people in the world are going to own 0.1 Bitcoin, right? So, try to make that. I'm trying to make it me, right? And you guys should be trying to make it you through dollar cost averaging. That 0.1, if Bitcoin goes to $10 million, that's $1 million, right? So, and that's a $10,000 investment right now. So I'm not saying, drop 10 grand on it. If you've got it, it might not be a bad idea. It's certainly a buy the dip opportunity. And, but moreover, it's a good dollar cost average opportunity. And if we go back down in the cycle peak and we get to the cycle low again, like I was showing you earlier, a year and a couple months after the cycle peak, then that's the time you want to buy the dip. Then instead of putting, a $200 a month, you really want to buy a lot of it then, right? Because you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. You're not buying it on the high, you're buying it on the low. And instead of buying, $200 of it, you buy ideally 400, and your dollar cost, if you can afford it, $100 a week, for example, or even more, whatever you can, because that is when you're going to be buying it on the lowest price of a 4-year cycle. And that's the time where you can say, yeah, you know what? I'm not an analyst. I'm not a good investor. I need to buy this when the price is at its super lowest. And that way I just sit back on the couch. I'm not going to day trade. I'm not going to buy and sell and buy and sell. I'm going to sit on the couch because I bought it at the lowest possible price. And I'm going to just sit here and wait a couple years for the price to go up. That is the best approach to buying into anything. When I was younger, Apple was almost bankrupt, and the stock was less than $5, and I was like, I'm not fucking buying Apple. It's going bankrupt, right? So you got to think of it in that respect. If it's something of value, something that will go up forever, right? As they say, it's going up forever, Laura, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we have all the biggest asset managers in the world have all bought into it. They're not going to buy into this thing if they thought it was going to go to zero. They're not, they do a lot of analysis, and the best thing we can do as, common investors is take their analysis and use it to our benefit. They're not going to throw away whatever. BlackRock currently has 600 million Bitcoins. So whatever the math is on that, $600 billion maybe? 60 billion probably. They're not going to throw 60 billion bucks away, right? This is the way I look at it. Folks, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps with the algorithm and to grow the show. I will definitely keep trying to bring the latest news from around the crypto sphere and Bitcoin industry from around the world. I'll keep checking the best stories so you don't have to. And remember, this show is all about financial literacy, so please do go through the show notes. Read those books that I have posted. They're all free. Listen to them while you're driving. You can be doing a lot of things while you're driving or while you're doing other things and learning, expanding your mind, and gaining financial literacy. That's going to go a long way in helping you keep money in your pockets and away from the bank's pockets, which it's a, when you want to talk about pandemic, forget frickin' COVID and disease. A pandemic is the bank taking a hell of a lot of everybody's money, and it's been happening for decades, if not hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. So get out of that cycle. That's what's going to make you the richest. If you can have your own business, a great tip on that is from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Again, it's one of the books I have listed in there. I wouldn't say it's the least educational book out of all those books. Okay, doesn't teach you much, but what it does teach you is the number one thing that comes out of your pay is your tax. And if you have your own company, the way the government has things structured, it is for the corporation. So if you make $1 million, for example, and then you spend $1 million on your corporation, well, what's left to pay in taxes? Zero. So how much tax are you going to pay? Zero. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's really what his book's all about. He doesn't actually even say that in his book, right? You've got to read between the lines. Those other books I have, do yourself a favor, go through those books while you're driving. Before you know it, you'll get through the book and you'll have all this new knowledge. In order would be the way I did it. I've read a lot more than those. Those are just a few that I could find that were free, and some of my favorites as well. Folks, money is abundant and money is everywhere. It is time that's scarce. So spend your time wisely. Always spend less money than what you earn. And if you suddenly start making more money, save more money. Don't spend more money, and start saving today. If you start saving when you're young, you ideally can retire when you're 40 or 45, when you're still in your prime and able to do the things you love. If you've got a great idea, start with that idea today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't say, I'm not ready, I need more plan. Start today and things will come together for you. Again, folks, please do share, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next stream. Thanks so much for joining.